Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Prophet Muhammad SAW Part 1. The Great Battle of Badr. Background and Cause. The Battle of Badr is one of the great events of human history. It deeply affected men's idea and content. The Battle of Badr deserves a place in any history of the period. It was the original cause of all the battles that followed. The battle took place in 17th Ramadan 2 Hijri March 6, 24. Many problems lead to the Battle of Badr, the unfriendly Quraysh. The Prophet ﷺ and his companion had migrated to Medina. They had received a warm welcome there. They stayed there peacefully, preaching and inviting more people to Islam. But Quraysh continued to remain very unfriendly towards Muslims. They could not tolerate the rising fame of Allah's Messenger ﷺ. The rapid spread of Islam increased their anxiety. They therefore always looked for a chance to cause trouble and destroy the resettled Muslims of Medina. The jealousy of Jews. Islam had faced enormous trouble at Mecca, but the trouble at Medina was far greater. As Islam began to spread fast, some Jews mocked and learned Rabbi like Abdullah bin Salam embraced Islam. This inflamed the jealousy of the Jews. Such people that had disease in their hearts entered Islam hypocritically. They made a show of their Islam. They secretly worked to break the Muslim harmony. They were hypocrites. They also always tried to find an easy way out of their promises. Power seeking people. Power hungry like people like Abdullah bin Ubay become very unfriendly towards the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. They showed hatred and envy towards them. At the time of Allah's Messenger ﷺ arrived, everything was rigged for Abdullah bin Ubay to seize power in Medina. His people had made all the preparation to crown him their king. But when the Prophet arrived, they abandoned him in favor of Islam. This made Abdullah bin Ubay very angry. He thought that Allah's Messenger ﷺ had come in the way of his kingship. However, when he saw that his people were determined to accept Islam, he too accepted it, but he kept his hypocrisy. He remained at enmity with the Muslims. The Quraysh prepared for an actual war. The Meccan considered Muslims as a serious threat to the reputation of the Quraysh. Their god and goddess, they sent threatening letters to the Muslims. They often descend and pasture ground near Medina. They destroyed the fruit trees of the Muslims. They often carried away their flocks. The Quraysh write a letter to Abdullah bin Ubay. The Quraysh went as far as writing a letter to Abdullah bin Ubay. In it, they asked him to kill the Muslims or drive them out of Medina, or else be prepared to face an attack. Abdullah bin Ubay, who was later called a hypocrite, could not, however, fulfill the demand of the Quraysh. The fear of his own people turning against him kept him from doing it. The Quraysh exiled people living between Mecca and Medina. Finding their attempts through the Ibn Ubay bearing no fruit, the Meccans turned their attention to the people living between Mecca and Medina. They began to steer them against the Muslims. Permission to fight in self-defense. The Muslims were living under the constant threat of the Quraysh invasion. It was then the Prophet ﷺ received a revelation permitting Muslims to fight in self-defense. Permission to give in to those who fight because they have been wronged. The main point to notice is that the Muslims are asked to take the defensive. Islam is the religion of peace. It strikes for peace rather than seeking wars. It does not permit the killing of a human being merely because he or she does not believe in Islam. In fact, Islam in fact permits war only for self-defense. When non-Muslims make or attempt aggression on Muslim or interfere with the spread of their message to mankind. The Prophet ﷺ persecutions against Muslims against possible attack. As the first measure, Allah's Messenger ﷺ sent out small band of men. Their duty was to keep an eye on the movement of the Quraysh. The main function of these bands was to watch and obtain information about the movement of the enemy. The geopolitical situation of the area was in favor of Muslims. Caravans from Mecca to Syria had to pass between Medina the coast. The Muslim had to deal with only a few guards accompanying this caravan. A state of war. It should, however, be kept clear in mind that a state of war existed between the two states of Medina and Mecca. It is the light that attacks on Meccan trade caravan should be seen. They should not be considered as mere plunder. These activities were chiefly directly against the trade caravan of Quraysh. It was because the main strength of the Quraysh lay in their trade. The only way to force the Quraysh to live in peace with Muslims was to cut off their trade route, bring out the economic pressure, and thus make them realize by means of crushing defeat they are entirely new period and began in the history of Islam. This policy of discouraging an attack by